Well, welcome back to our library studio. This is another episode in Qatsyr harvest. We're talking about the conditions that will surround the Shavua harvest as we move closer to the time of Jacob's troubles. And Yahweh, our Father, seeks to remove his um, covenant family from this time. Would you mind just turning down the volume a little bit on my ear? That would be appreciated. So I still have an eardrum left when we're finished with the program. That will be most helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you. To resume back in the statements that we were considering, the prophetic assessments given to us by Yoel. Yoel is the prophet who really had the most to say about this particular time. Particularly as we move into the time of Israel's troubles. And he is now speaking of the fact that it may be, not maybe, it will be exceedingly gruesome between now and then. In the end, it will be happily ever after. And so he reveals, rejoice over these favorable circumstances. Children of Zion, demonstrate a positive attitude with Yahweh, your God, for he has provided for you that which is associated with the autumn rains through a teacher who communicates what you need to know about the Torah to live, so that you can be right and therefore vindicated. He has brought down for you an abundant shower of guidance and instruction about being gleaned and growing thereafter, as was intended from the beginning. I'm sure you realize, Leah, that in our program towards the end of last week, I believe it was on a Thursday of last week, we moved into this statement and began to share it with the listeners of the Yahweh blog. And we have returned to it just because it's so rich with meaning, so important for all who wish to spend time with Yahweh.
Before we go on, the thing that strikes me most, children of Zion, children of the signpost along the way. Are you one of them?
Yeah, the signposts along the way run from Dod's home in the city of Dod at the base of the ridge line of Mount Moriah, and up that ridge line all the way to the summit of Mount Moriah, which is where we call the Temple Mount. That is where the two witnesses will be hanging out for this last 3.5 years. It is the place where Solomon built the house for Yahweh's name. So it is the most important place on earth. And these signs reveal to Israel and to all humankind how we go from Dod's home, and he's representative not only of the covenant, but also of Israel, to Yahweh's. So we're supposed to rejoice. We're encouraged to. You're not supposed to do anything. You're not being encouraged to rejoice over what is an exceedingly favorable circumstance for the children who read these signs along the way. And then we read that something that is really essential if we're going to be part of God's family, because we see people come and go.
Oh, yeah.
And those who go are almost always embittered and grumpy. And so this says, demonstrate a positive attitude. If you can't demonstrate a positive attitude with Yahweh, there's something wrong with you. And if there's something wrong with you, we don't want you part of the family. It is the most crippling of all liabilities and disabilities.
You can fix a lot, but not a bad attitude.
Yeah, there's almost nothing in terms of a disability that you can't overcome except a bad attitude. Mm-hmm. And God does not want people with a bad attitude around him, and he does want to be surrounded by those who are looking at all the possibilities and smiling. In fact, I would say that this is the defining statement of what was wrong with Israel during the Exodus. They had a crappy attitude. They never changed from their crappy attitude. I'm not sure they have
We
anything
have
but
the same attitude to this day.
you listen to them gleefully talking about the demolition of Gaza. You hear them talking about the fact that their Air Force was able to fly uninterrupted, controlling the skies of Iran as they bombed it. And that they're bragging about how we came to the defense of those Druze and then dropped some bombs on Syria. And we're bragging yesterday about bombing Yemen again. It's just too much. It's bomb destroy. It's gotten old. Israel, you just can't go bomb everybody into oblivion. Or they're going to bomb you into oblivion. That's what's going to happen. And there just isn't a willingness to be open and receptive and positive with Yahweh. They don't even want to say his name. You mention Yahweh's name around an Israeli and they'll run. You'll never get an Israeli to even engage with you and say, oh, maybe I think you have it mispronounced or we don't say it for such and such. No, they just flat out look at Yahweh's name like it's kryptonite to Superman.
Yep.
Funny thing. Superman was a character created by two Jews.
Yes.
And the whole idea was that that he was a guy that would stand up on behalf of the minority and behalf of the oppressed, and Jews were, of course, oppressed as a minority, and so he was a guy that would stand up and do the right thing on behalf of Jews. And now in this woke environment, the latest Superman movie. Superman's arch enemy is a country that is presented exactly like Israel in Gaza, and that he is now fighting for the Gazans and the Muslims so that he can stand up against and destroy the Jews.
Everything that we've ever created has turned to bite us in the tuchus.
Yeah, that is another example. Anyway, that's a negative attitude, and God says, no, I want a positive attitude, and it's a positive attitude with Yahweh. Not with Hashem.
So Superman's a Nazi now?
Pardon?
Yeah. Yeah, Superman's a Nazi.
Really?
Yeah, because the Marxists...
But the UN, they're all Nazis now, too.
Yeah, the Marxists of the woke agenda, of the progressives, they act exactly like the Nazis of old. The alliance between Muslims and Marxists began with Adolf Hitler and with his meeting with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, which turned the exile of Jews from Europe into the extermination of Jews from Europe. And this was the first really important meeting between newly minted Marxists and Muslims. And that's why I keep on posting and drawing attention to that big Marxist movement in the Middle East. That skit that's done between the Marxist woman and Adolf Hitler.
Yep.
And she's saying, I'm come here to kill you because you stand for everything we're opposed to. And he says, well, let's have a chat. And everything that she believed in, he says, well, look at my book. I agree with you. And they go down the list, including hating Jews. They say, see, we have another thing in common. Fascism and Marxism are the same thing. They use different words, but they're exactly the same thing in practice. And so that was the first. And then the most diabolical now to Israelis is the myth of the Palestinians. And the Palestinians was a Marxist Muslim plot. It was when the Russian Soviet Union, KGB, plotted with the Muslim Brotherhood to create the myth of a people known as Palestinians. So this has been around for a long time, and now it's exceedingly grotesque with Marxists of all ages. In fact, I just saw one where it looks like they were taken out for a Sunday fun day from the nursing home, holding their signs on, we free Palestine will be free. Stop the Jewish genocide. It's really sad to see what's happened to uh, people today, and realize that just as Christianity and Islam and Judaism were all created by Jews, so was Marxism. You've been your own worst enemy for a long time. But
I
anyway.
have met the enemy. He is us.
Yeah, I've met the enemy. He is us. So, and yeah, it says, I don't want any enemy. I don't want Marxists in heaven. I don't want the religious in heaven. Don't want the political in heaven.
Oh,
So
God, no.
demonstrate a positive attitude with Yahweh. For he has provided for you. He has given to you as a gift that which is associated with the autumn rains through a teacher and who is a communicator of what you need to know about the Torah. This is one of the great advantages of not being hoodwinked into simply looking at a single lexicon that was designed to justify an existing
Text,
translation,
or ideology.
like Strong's with the King James, and saying, well, that must just mean rain. And you say, well, why is it written more then? Because it is clearly a compound of ma, meaning ponder the implications of yara. And yara is the verb that Yahweh says is the basis of Torah. It means source from which directions, guidance, and instructions flow. So this word means that God has given an instructor, a teacher, who understands what you need to know about the guidance and directions provided within the Torah.
I
And
have a question before you continue. Do you think that this is the book of life that Yahweh refers to, that names will be written in?
no,
Okay.
no, I think that when he refers to as a book of life is his and under his control. This is the book of Yoel. I don't think Yoel, in fact, we know it doesn't contain names like that. My books that I've written on behalf of Yada Yahweh, they don't contain names like this. So no, that wouldn't be possible. But it is very true that the books that I have written do contain enormous amounts of Torah teaching. So that would be true. And in this case, the subtle reference to autumn rains is also meaningful, because in the final years, the autumn really of our time, God's going to provide the Adamah Parah, who is going to be offered as a sacrifice to redeem the remnant of Israel. And during that time, he is going to be showered literally with water as part of the funeral process, if you will. It's going back to what Eliah experienced when he sacrificed the bull to resolve the issues of Israel, with them being overtly religious and also political. And there was copious amounts of water brought to drench the wood, so that it'd be more smoke, more ash, more and more difficult for Yahweh to light the fire. And the same thing will be true this time. There will be enormous amounts of water that will cascade off the Temple Mount during the funeral of the Adamah Parah. And so he is associated not only with coming as an autumn rain, but because of this enormous amount of water that will be associated with his sacrifice.
And that happens on Teruah,
Of course,
the day of the herald.
Right. So the other part of it is as well that the Parah, the title that is ascribed to the Adamah Parah, this productive bull, is the Hebrew word for to be fruitful and productive. Toward the end of this period of the time of Israel's troubles, there's going to be drought, and God wants his people to be productive again. to bear fruit. And so rain is the thing that makes that possible. So these are all of the metaphors that are being conveyed here, so that you can be right and vindicated. The purpose of the final two witnesses and the sacrifice of the Adama Parah is to make the children of Israel right again with God, so they can be there when Dod returns with Yahweh. And the benefit of somebody bringing Torah guidance and teaching is that if you know what God is offering and expects in return, it is definitely possible to become right with God, which is the key that unlocks heaven's door. Then it says, he has brought down for you an abundant shower. Once again, Geshem. When we read Daniel and we find that the Torahless one, who's going to be Donald Trump, attacks and kills, and probably through his minions, the Adama Parah, the sacrifice. In his body, it says, is brought to a place where it is burned. That would be in the altar. The word for body is very similar to Geshem, although it's written in Aramaic. And so this is being identified with that the body will be doused in water. And it's the same word here in Hebrew that is used in Aramaic to describe that state of affairs. So he's brought down for you an abundant shower of guidance and instruction. It's moray again, of Torah teaching, of somebody that makes the Torah come back alive in your presence. We've done so many programs where the stories of the Torah are germane for our time, where we're reading stories that, yes, they took place in that history,
strange, yeah,
but they're all told for this very moment and our circumstance. And so I don't think there's any better way to make the Torah guidance and instruction be meaningful in our lives.
But do Yahud celebrate Teruah today?
Oh, the day that this occurs, of course not. No, they celebrate Rosh Hashanah, which is a Babylonian holiday. It means head of the year. And Yahweh's year starts the first of Abib. 14 days later is Passover, then unyeasted bread, and firstborn children. The first day of the seventh month is Teruah. And Teruah speaks of a herald. It's the day of the herald. It is denoted by blowing the shofar, as is Shavuot, but it is the most complicated, actually, day to be fulfilled of all of them. Passover, pretty straightforward. It was the sacrifice of the lamb opens the door to life. Matzah, our guilt is taken into Sheol to be deposited there, never to be seen again, removing the fungus of religious and political guilt. And Bakurim is the celebration of firstborn children, with Dod being the Bakor, the firstborn. And then we have Shavuot, which is a harvest of upright and standing grain. It's a wheat harvest. And it has the two loaves that signify that it will be of Yehudim and Goyim. Then skipping Teruah for a moment, we get to Kippurim. It is the great homecoming and the family reunion. It's the time that the relationship with Yisrael and Yehudim is reconciled with Yahweh, such that on Sukkah, we enter the 1,000-year celebration of camping out with God. But the one of these seven that has a double effect in it, that the evening is one thing, in the sense that the evening is the final ingathering. It's called a Lakat of Teruah, which is for 7,000 Israelites and Yehudim. And that's as the sun goes down. And then that evening, the four chariots come down from Shamaim, and three of the four go and canvass the world. And the white one brings this final remnant of Yisrael back to Jerusalem. over that 12 hours, such that by sunrise, to actually a full solar eclipse, we have the sacrifice of the Adam of Perah, this bloody red man who is a productive bull. And that's the whole story that is even being hinted at right here. And it's told vividly also in the 7th chapter of Daniel. So, and the 12th, so we know exactly.
A little too vividly, thank you.
It is pretty vivid in that chapter, but it's something we need to know exactly what's going to occur, so that when it happens, God's people are forewarned. Mm-hmm. And so all of that is transpiring, and so this day that it really has a threefold function on Teruah: the ingathering the lakat, on the evening, the sacrifice of the red heifer during the morning, and during that later that day, you have this funeral that is conducted by Elia, who has also orchestrated the sacrifice of the bull to rid the nation of religion and politics 2,888 years previous to this. And Yahweh ignites the fires and releases the waters that cleanse the adulterous woman that is Israel. That's a 1, 2, 3. It's an extraordinary day. And so that is what is being hinted at here with these words. And, God's a great storyteller. He's got a language that's perfectly suited to convey these kinds of insights. He knows the past, the present, and the future. And so at any time he can, this particular statement was probably 2,600 years prior to its fulfillment. And he can bring in those kind of details. That's what makes it so much fun to be translating and commenting on his text. So it says, he brought down for you an abundant shower of guidance and instruction about being gleaned and growing thereafter. Well, yes, that is exactly what the message is. That's why we're doing this series on the Qatsyr harvest. And in particular, being gleaned. This is a being gathered together and finally harvest in the aftermath. It means it's from ma, to ponder the implications of lakash, being gleaned in a final harvest and then arriving thereafter. There's only one gleaning of the 3 harvests that Yahweh speaks of, and that is, of course, Teruah. That's when this final gleaning takes place. A gleaning is a tough harvest, and it means that all of the low-hanging fruit's long gone. It's this. In fact, it even says in Yashaya that the stick that represents the choder has to be banging against the olive trees to get those olives to fall off. And so it's work, and it's a smaller harvest than we're expecting.
Don't worry, we have a big stick
on Shabuah. We do. Yeah, that stick. He's bullish too. So we was about to be gleaned and growing thereafter, as was intended from the beginning. This is God's story. It's from the beginning. He is not changing it. I constantly encounter people that don't like one thing or another. We've got a guy now that's returning to his conspiratorial and political past and wants to denounce the choder. But it's a pretty tough thing to do when God says that this fellow's not only going to arrive, but that he's going to arrive at this time and accomplish all of these things. And by the way, there's no other candidate. So, we ought to think it through. Well, as we look at the text here, we recognize that having read the signs that are posted along the way, particularly in Coming Home, which is the series devoted to Dode's Mizmor, that we have every reason to be joyous, even in the midst of the worst man has to offer during the time of Jacob's trouble. So this is a wonderful announcement, the shimmering silver lining surrounding the most ominous cloud. But the moment we reach...
I'm sorry, these two are just... they're fighting.
The moment we reach Teruah, the fighting will be over.
This is not funny, but these two
are just okay, this is
really distracting.
She's talking about Wookiee and Asher. Wookiee and Asher don't fight. They they
Okay,
play.
guys.
They're being
Come
very affectionate with one another, and
Let's go.
and Leia's trying to take them outside, but they don't want to go outside. They just Wookiee was in his Wookiee wagon, and Asher was trying to get Wookiee out, and now they're trampsing and playing around, and it's actually pretty adorable to see them play with each other. That
Yes, but it's going
it's
to
clear
inappropriately make
they
me smile.
they like each other. They have a very positive attitude about themselves and
Here we go again.
one another. Pardon?
Here we go again.
Yeah, this is Rich. Rich was saying that he had a time down there in the Rainbow Studio when it was just he and I, and the two were just going at it like they were lovers that had come back from being shipwrecked.
It was a full makeout session.
It was a makeout session. We don't think either of them have the sense to be anything more than playful. So it is still PG, even though it is very cute to see them together, and that is really happiness. That is the way we all should be. We should maybe not nip on each other's ankles and ears, but nevertheless, life should be
Wookiee's
should
an
be
ankle
enjoyable.
biter.
It would be fun. Wookiee is a little shorter than Asher, so you would expect Wookiee to be an ankle biter. So it is obviously no doubt that it's going to rain on the lands that Mayan has parched, but the rain metaphor
Right on time.
is now pounding us outside. This really what it was. We're
Right
having
on time.
we're having all sorts of cues. We're having dogs showing a great deal of happiness and a positive attitude and loving one another. And now we have a torrential downpour outside at the moment. Speaking of this downpour, we live
Right on cue.
on an island in the middle of the sea. So without rain, we would be in real trouble. So we celebrate the rain. We're thankful, always thankful for it. It's the kiss of life out here in an island in the midst of the sea, and it's just wonderful. That's ever since we've been here, Yahweh has provided enough to keep our plants delighted and happy. But this clearly, as it related to this rain, these two references. The first is a reference to being showered with Torah teaching that's going to be productive and bear fruit. And the second is the enormous amounts of water that will be attributed to the body of the Adamah Parah once it is sacrificed on behalf of the children of Israel, so that it purges them and washes them clean, cleansing the adulterous woman, so she is prepared for her betrothal to her returning king. Now, since Yahweh said this, it would be disrespectful and counterproductive to ignore it. We are in the autumn of our existence as mankind separated from God. The remedy is the final four Moed Mikre, recognizing that the three transpire in the fall. Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah are fall Mikre, just as Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim are in the spring, with Shabuah happening in between. So, to a very real extent, we are the voice of Shabuah, and we are the living embodiment of Teruah. In fact, if you were to ascribe a person to the first three Mikre,
Dode.
It's Dode, absolutely, unequivocally. He fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. He is the Passover lamb. And if you were to ascribe a person to Teruah,
I look at it this way: Teruah, Shabuah stands alone, but Teruah is sort of a knockdown, and everything after that is a knockdown effect. So that would be Yada.
Yeah, Teruah is the enabler.
Yes.
And the next two Mikre fall into place. If without Teruah, there is no return on Kippurim, and there's no return to the Garden of Eden and camping out with God on Sukkah. So Teruah is essential. And in a very real way, though, so is Shabuah, because the reason that we are guaranteed success
Is
after
that
a successful Shavua harvest is even if Elia and I, with Yahweh enabling us tremendously during those last 3.5 years, and all the legacy of these books and the Yahweh blog, don't prevail in convincing a significant remnant of Israelites to return to God at Kippurim, on Kippurim. God on Teruah is actually sending a chariot around the world to pick them up, to augment the number that are here. And with Shavua being successful, then we recognize that there will be attendees for the homecoming, even if they're returning now from Shamayim, and there will be plenty of souls to occupy the return to the Garden of Eden on Sukkah. So once we pass Shavua successfully, even the rest of it is a lay down hand. It's just a tougher hand to lay down because, as I said, there's a lot that transpires on Teruah. Teruah is I keep on referring to it as the greatest show on earth. Well,
it's going to be a spectacle, yes.
Yeah, well, Kippurim is this great celebration of the return of father and son, and of the wedding and family reunion. And it's just it's a great party. It'll be a great celebration. It's kind of funny in a way because the rabbis call it the Day of Atonement and of abasing oneself, and it's going to be the greatest celebration in the history of the universe. It's the great day of Yahweh. But it is all possible. It's all set into place based upon what happens on Teruah.
But the rabbis would prefer that you abase yourself. Think about that.
Well, I'm going to be pretty well abased, so they'll get their their way, and then after I'm abased, they're gone. So it's one of those things that you can smile. It does go to happily ever after. So we are in the autumn of our existence, and the remedy is the final four Mikre, particularly Teruah. And it's the Zeroah, the final Zeroah, that is responsible for sowing and cultivating the seeds, which are sown and will be gathered in on these harvests. So it bears repeating. Yahweh wants to spend eternity with others, and those in particular who share a positive outlook on life and on his testimony, who, and God says, I think it's in your best interest to be highly observant of what I have written and to listen to what I have said and then to respond appropriately. Or even now, today, as he conveyed through Solomon, when you hear the voice of my observant foreigner, my Nakri, coming out of the sky as from the cloud via the satellite that we use to broadcast, and that you may also use to receive your internet. When you hear what he has to say, you should do everything he asks. So God,
listen to him.
Yeah, because he is an autumn rain, an autumn shower of Torah teaching and guidance.
But you can do what you've always done. Stick your fingers in your ear and continue.
Well, they're worse than just putting their fingers in their ears and banging their heads against a stone wall. Yeah. They blabber, and they blabber religious prayers rather than listening to God. They have, just to show you how whacked out rabbinical Judaism is. When Yahweh says in Dabarim 6:4, listen, Yisrael. Yahweh is our God. Yahweh is one. They don't listen.
No.
They scream it multiple times a day. They talk over God rather than listen to God. And even in this statement, they eliminate his name.
Of course, because they're more important than God.
So they eliminate his name, and that's the whole message. And rather than the verb says you ought to listen, they talk. It's a tough crowd, and not tough in a good way.
Been the problem since Moshe walked away.
Yeah. In the context of a volume written to explain the Qatsyr harvests of Shabu and Teruah, Malkosh is a treasure. It's based upon Ma and Lakash, and it reveals that those who are tzedakah, exceedingly right about God and thus vindicated, as a result of the Moreh, the Torah's teaching and guidance, which are about to Malkush, cause a remnant of Yisrael to be gleaned. So we are being prepared for the final harvest, after which we will continue to grow and flourish. God spends an inordinate amount of time talking about, particularly in a prophet like Yoel, Shabuah, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. And he covers them all. This is where we're heading. This is what you need to know. Now, you also need to know Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, because you can't capitalize on Shabuah unless you understand those things, and you can't be gleaned even on Teruah unless you understand the who, what, where, why, and when of Dod's fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim.
And the rabbinical songs about Melkush, it's all horseshit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Clearly, Makush is a gleaning. It is being right about God as a result of this shower of Torah teaching that we are providing, not to Talmud teaching, mind you.
Nope.
So that
They
you
are not right about God.
you can be brought into God's home in the seventh dimension. So this is what we're being prepared for. This is one of many examples where the most enlightening insights are presented right in front of our eyes. This is why these amplified translations, where every word and every letter of every word is put under a microscope so that they can be examined and the treasures can be enjoyed for what God is providing to us. We're cultivating understanding by exposing each word's etymological roots. This is what Yahweh has intended for us from the beginning. It's why there are 1,000 references to what we are doing together. This is important. Now, it is Yahweh's desire that the children of Zion follow his signs home. And when we read them, we discover that Yahweh, your God, has truthfully and reliably provided for you a teacher who communicates what you need to know about the Torah to live. He is teaching an authorized and accurate message directly from the source of guidance and instruction, so that you can be right and thus vindicated, correct, and acquitted by exercising good judgment regarding that which is verifiable and valid. He has brought down for you an abundant shower of guidance and instruction, pouring out and pointing out what you should be contemplating regarding the Torah's teaching and directions, communicating about being gleaned and then growing thereafter, being gathered together and finally harvested in the aftermath of what was, well, intended from the beginning, returning to where it all began, from the garden to the garden. Yoel 2:23.
Does that mean we don't have to wear clothes anymore?
I'm going to look a lot leaner and buffer before we're going to
Back to Eden?
to that.
Yeah, I remember what it said
And
there.
I may have my own private island with my my wife, if that's going to be the case. But I appreciate where you're going with that. Maybe an early exit for Rich again.
I gotta go.
The pooches are not the only ones who are frisky tonight. All righty. This instruction is repeated in Zechariah 10, matter of fact. And I'm going to get my attention back on where I'm supposed to have it here, no matter what. And Zechariah 10, it is directed towards Yehudim and against the religious and political leaders, particularly of the Goyim. It is also shared in Jeremiah 5, contrasting this opportunity to learn against the rabbinical propensity to deceive. So I am exceedingly happy and fulfilled in my relationship with Yahweh, but there are moments like these when I experience some sadness. In fact, last time we brought this material, I remember on our last show here in the library studio actually shedding a tear over what saddened me, because God deserved better from us.
Yeah.
It should not have been this way. Yahweh should have been able to find 1 million Yehudim eager and able to present his Torah teaching and his guidance to his people. Our God deserves better.
Even one.
Even one.
Even one.
And yet, because he searched and found none, according to the prophet Yeshaya, Isaiah, a sucker emerging from the original rootstock would have to do. Informing his people that he was calling them home was worth supporting, a choder. Sending him out, a secondary stem, and a nakri, a foreigner, an observant foreigner, because it would lead to awakening Yehudim, Yah's beloved. But just think how frustrated God must have been to have to inform Yisrael, after all he has said and done through them, that it would occur this way because, well, they had all rejected him.
Whoa. We were way too far gone. Way too far gone. Really. Unreachable.
It's still sad.
And he might be calling you a sucker because we are so unreachable that you'd have to be a sucker to come after us. We think we know it all.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
Except, why don't you know God's name?
Yeah.
Didn't he reveal it to
Why
Moshe?
don't we?
Didn't he reveal it to Moshe?
That's a really good question.
Didn't he reveal it to Moshe?
Yeah.
Don't you dress the Torah up like a whore and parade it around and kiss it and pretend like it's the greatest thing on earth? Isn't the introduction to Yahweh's name
needs a mikvah.
Central to the Torah? In fact, is there anything more important to Torah than Yahweh calling Moshe by name and saying, my name is Yahweh. It's the name I want to be remembered for all time. What should you tell the children of Israel? Tell them that Yahweh.
I am Yahweh. That is my name forever.
Yeah.
Whoa.
How could you not know that?
Because the rabbis, they taught us another lie, their lie. That's what they did.
But you can read.
Surely we can.
Why don't you bother?
Women aren't allowed to read the Torah.
Well, they're trying to change some of that, but not in the most fundamentalist of the Haredim and others like them. They erased his name.
They prefer the dead cult of rabbis.
They even changed themselves. They call themselves, what do you call yourself? When you introduce yourself, you say, hello, I'm Leah. I am a
Jew.
Mm-hmm. Did God call you Jews?
No.
What did he call you?
Yahud.
Yahud. And Yahud is a compound of what two names?
Dod.
And
Yahweh.
Mm. So you didn't like that name. You didn't like having Yahweh and
apparently we hate our own God. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, you do. You hate the God of Israel.
Is that what you needed to hear? That's the truth.
That's
the dead truth.
That is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So should you think that...
And if you think that I'm on the hot seat, Israel, wait until you are.
This is anything but an unsubstantiated conclusion. And we will turn to Jeremiah 5:19 through 5:31 and a subsequent program in this series upon our review of these particular events pertaining to Shabuah and Yahweh's return. What we're going to discover is that even though God is disgusted with Goyim, and he is, he tells them, I don't want you to emulate the ways of the Goyim, but he's told the Nakri to communicate to and reach out to Goyim. In addition and simultaneously to Yisrael. It's very clear. I want you to talk to both of them. So As a goy, you have the same set of conditions. You can't be religious. You can't be political. You got to accept the terms and conditions of the covenant as they are laid out and attend the Moed Mikre as they were delineated.
Yes, and you have to love Yahud, because I don't think you'll like it very much there if you don't.
No, as a matter of fact, I read an article on my feed into Facebook where a rabbi was talking about how if a goy wants to be part of the Jewish covenant of Judaism, so now they make the covenant with
The rabbi's
Judaism
covenant.
as opposed to Yahweh's covenant, then they have to agree to all of the very strict rules that the rabbis have imposed. So it's the thing I think that pisses me off, and probably God more than anybody, is that they can't just go off on their own. You'd hate God, okay, that's your choice. Then don't call your goddamn Talmud a Torah. Don't pretend that you have some association with a God whose name you won't even say and you call him Hashem. Go find your own God. Go make your own. People have been making gods for centuries and millennia. Make your own God.
They did.
Write your
Bar
book and call
Kokhba.
your book by your name.
Mhm.
And if God has a covenant, don't steal it from him. He has a Messiah, don't steal that from him either. Don't go and take the first of his mikre and pervert its intent and then spit on all the others. Go off and form your own goddamn religion without ripping off God. It's disgusting what you're doing. Well, what we discover when we go to Yirmiyah is that even though God is disgusted with Goyim and their religiosity and their politics, and he will be obliterating most of them, he is maybe less happy, more disappointed with Israel. And in this context, Yahweh is going to explain the nature and purpose of Moreh, pouring out and pointing out his teaching and how it will be used to circumvent the rabbis and their Babylonian Talmud. But since there is a lesson here worth noting, I want to reinforce the fact that Moreh is one of many Hebrew terms that is built by combining the interrogatories, my or ma. There are hundreds of them in the Hebrew language. And this is a derivative of a noun, which is very often used as a verb. In this case, Moreh is from ma, to ponder the implications of, to contemplate yara, the source from which teaching and guidance, instruction and directions flow. And while that is instructive, this guidance becomes transformative when we realize that Yahweh defined Torah using the verb yara. And as such, this is a referendum between Yahweh and the rabbis. Guidance or laws, Torah or Talmud, between a liberating relationship or a stifling religion. Moreh is the source of our joy, the directions to the harvest, our guidance for growing, while pointing out the instructions on how to return to what was originally intended, like the garden. Refer to Moreh as autumn rain, if you so desire, but never lose sight of the fact of what is being provided. Now, should you encounter an ordinary shower, you will simply get wet. Unlike the Christian baptism.
Mm-hmm.
But being drenched.
Or the Jewish mikvah.
Yeah, absolutely. But being drenched in a moreh is life-changing, capable of making you tzedakah, right and vindicated. Through this shower of guidance and instruction, Yahweh pours out what you should be contemplating regarding his Torah teaching and directions, communicating what you need to know to live a joyous life. This more leads to malkush, being gleaned and then growing thereafter, being gathered together and harvested with fullness of life, abundance of life in the aftermath. This more was intended right from the beginning so that we could return to where it all began, in the Garden of Eden. So are you going to stay out of this rain, or are you going to dance in it?
Well, I know that the religious, let's take Judaism. Their zona takes a mikvah. The Christians, their zona makes a baptismal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in Islam, their zona does ablutions. No, they all try to fake it somehow, but they never quite. Yeah, they missed the rain for the. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's
there wasn't much to do with the rain
Nope.
in Islam. They were out there in the middle of a desert. And Yahweh speaks a lot about it, and it's always a metaphor for sustaining life, life-giving, nurturing rains. But this one in particular is extraordinary. There are so many moments as we study the prophet Yoel, which are life-altering, which you just say,
Right.
that is stupendous. That can be the foundation for my days. This is the guidance I need to grow, to enter Shamayim, to open the door to life, to embrace all Yahweh has to offer, and then to share it so that my life becomes productive and others bear fruit as well. Well, this is a good place for us to conclude this program. We will join back in here with another statement from Yoel. It speaks of threshing floors which are filled with pure grain. It speaks of the new wine of inheritance, and it speaks of an overflowing of the presses and the vats, along with the glistening of olive oil, of all four of the metaphors that Yahweh loves to share with his people, that all speak of things that are vitally important to our renewal and survival. And that's what we'll begin in our next program. Thank you for listening. May God bless you all.